Hey guys, what is up? Wanted to take a few minutes today and wrap up this cutting caffeine experiment that I've been doing. So I am 3.5 weeks into the 30 days that I originally committed to, and I think I've learned all there is to learn about the potential benefits or side effects of caffeine on my physical life as well as my projection and my lucid dreaming practice. So I'm going to call this the last one, and I'm going to move on to something else. But as far as what I learned, I am going to continue this experiment far beyond the 30 days that I originally had planned for, and that is primarily due to the physical aspects of it. I just have so much more energy now than I had when I was drinking caffeine and relying on stimulants for that boost. I still have energy all the way up until the time that I'm going to bed, and it used to be that I would get home from work and I would just be dragging and I would just feel groggy and I would make my second cup of coffee and it would pick me back up and I was good again. But now I don't need that. The second piece of this is I have just been consistently in a great mood for the last 2.5 weeks. I just feel great. And I will mention that overall I am a generally happy person, but there are a memorable number of times where I just have little bouts of depression. I just feel down really for no reason at all. And thinking back on those times, it is almost always right about the time I get home from work, right before I make my second cup of coffee. And I am really beginning to believe that caffeine or the lack of caffeine or the desire for caffeine was the main contributing factor to those mood swings. So another reason why I'm going to continue on with this. As far as my projection and my dreaming practice goes, my dreaming is still going great. I'm still remembering 4 to 6 dreams a night. I don't anticipate that'll grow because that's really been consistently the amount of dreams I can remember each night, probably the last year and a half. As far as my mind-awake, body-asleep practice goes, I was having an incredibly difficult time keeping my mind awake, and I was maybe failing 70% of the time, 75% of the time, and I am back up to about a 90 to 100% success rate with that. And that is actually primarily thanks to a comment that a friend of mine that I met here over my channel made on one of my videos. And this just seems like the simplest, most obvious thing in the world, but he made this comment in passing that maybe I need to be more aggressive in my attempts to keep my mind awake. And like I said, that seems like an obvious thing, right? But it took me so long to learn how to put my body to sleep while keeping my mind awake and to reach that state that once I learned the procedure and the steps and all the sensations, I just did it the exact same way every single time because that's what worked. Well, I cut caffeine out and that just quit working. So I changed my practice. I am a little more aggressive in my attempts to keep my mind awake, and that made a world of difference. It's incredible. It actually just flipped it right back around and I'm right back where I was. So just to kind of expound on that a little bit, my practice is that I put my body to sleep by going through this full body relaxation. I start at my feet and relax all the muscles in my feet, up my legs, all the way up to my head. And during this time where I'm doing this full body relaxation, I do this really deep breathing, and I start counting backwards from 300 to 1, and eventually I get to the point where I'm doing more shallow breathing, and I continue to count. Well, the way that I was counting before is I was counting my breaths, and so I would breathe in, breathe out, I'd say 299, and breathe in and breathe out, 298. Well, the problem was that left such a big gap between numbers that I was falling asleep between one number and the next, and I would never get to 285. Well, all I had to change was I started counting my heartbeats instead of my breath, which it was much more frequent, much more regular, and just that continual kind of internal conversation in my head as far as counting down, down, down was enough to make the difference. And I left the rest of my practice exactly as it is. So thank you for that, Scott. I really should have thought of that, but I didn't, so I really appreciate your comment. I'm not sure how long it would have taken me to come across that idea. So as far as that goes, things are good. I have to say I have not had a successful projection since cutting caffeine out. I'm hoping that that'll turn around soon because I feel good. I'm starting to have spontaneous awakenings throughout the night again, so that contributes to success with the indirect method. And then the ability to get back into this mind-awake, body-asleep practice I'm hoping will help here in the near future as well. So I'm optimistic. I'm not too worried about that. I will say that I had the most incredible, longest ever experience with non-stop lucid dreams all night long that I've ever had about a week ago. And I'll tell you, it was actually primarily due to camping. So if you've never gone camping, if you don't go camping regularly, or it's been a long time since you have, I would highly recommend it for this practice. I had forgotten how great it is. I actually had one other experience camping a couple of years back. But really, it forces you to do all of the things that you should be doing in your practice anyway. It gets you out in nature. It gets you far away from electronics and distractions. In fact, I didn't even have a cell phone signal, so I left my phone in the car and didn't even look at it. You're hiking around all day, you get exhausted, and when you lie down at night, you're sleeping in a sleeping bag on a rough, uncomfortable bit of ground, and it just keeps you right on that edge of awake and asleep all night long, which is just a perfect place to practice lucid dreaming and projection. So it's, like I said, it's just forcing you to do all of these things that really could help your practice if you did them yourself anyway. So highly recommend camping if that's not something that you've done in a while or haven't, or that you don't do regularly. All right, so my overall just thoughts on caffeine, I have decided it doesn't matter. I've decided that obviously cutting caffeine, going from lots of it to none of it, makes an incredibly big impact. But if you're somebody who learned how to project while you were consuming caffeine, or somebody who learned to project while you weren't consuming caffeine, and you learned to cope with either that excess stimulation in your mind or your body, or learned to cope without it, I've decided it really doesn't make a difference either way. I'm going to continue, as I said, for the physical aspects of it, but for those of you who have wondered, I think there's no impact whatsoever to projection. In fact, I would say, as far as training for mind awake, body asleep, I would say it probably helped me with my training, because the extra added assistance in keeping my mind awake in those early days when I was having a really hard time with it, I would say caffeine might have been one of the key factors in helping me learn it. So from a training perspective, maybe that's a really good thing, and maybe you can just cut it out if you're interested in cutting it out. Cut it out after you've learned the process. So just some thoughts on that. The next experiment I'm going to be doing is 30 days of veganism, which I'm actually really looking forward to, and I have really high hopes for it. I'm hoping that that makes a much, much bigger difference than this caffeine experiment did. Just all of the hype around it, all of the reading that I've done, and all the testimonials I've heard other people, stating that veganism is just the way to go to have a more spiritual outlook and just more incredible experiences. I have very high hopes, so we will see. I'm going to start that up probably next week on Monday, and I'll start my 30 days from there, and we'll see where that takes me. So that is it for today. As always, like, comment, subscribe, help me build this community, and I will talk to you guys again soon.